he was just unbelievable, and it's worth checking out the montage of his free kicks because they're just so crisp and amazing and just chef's kiss. Absolutely brilliant.
After that Birmingham spell, that was it for him. He could never recover from that because it was so bad.
It's very hard to choose a goalkeeper. We don't give them enough recognition, but we're doing it now, and that's a good thing.
But they're my favourite strike partnerships when it's, two completely different strikers, both scoring goals for fun.
They were such a good duo, and they were the sole reason why Wigan went up that season in a surprise promotion, to say the very least. A top strike partnership, and nothing compares for me.
He's someone who will live fondly in my memory, mainly because he has got very bouncy hair as well. So that's always a positive in my book.
Scored 20 goals in one season from midfield, which is almost unheard of, especially at championship level. Just an unreal player, really, and he is Mr. Championship.
You've got to be some player when the club you were at are still singing about you to this day. Hello, welcome back to the Stopwatch. Today we've got a special episode for you. As it's the international break, we're going to take a trip down memory lane and dedicate the whole show to second tier retro. But it's still 5 topics, a 2-minute timer, and 2 hosts. We're Ryan and Justin from the Second Tier podcast. And let's get right into it. Justin, the first question I wanted to ask you was this: who is the Championship's most iconic strike partnership ever?
There's only one strike partnership that ever pops to my mind when this question comes up, and it's Nathan Ellington and Jason Roberts at Wigan Athletic in the 04-05 season. It was a strike partnership that had everything. You had Ellington, who could play with his back to goal, great with his feet, pretty good target man as well, and a deadly finisher. Then you had Jason Roberts, anything in the box, he's on it. They were such a good duo, and they were the sole reason why Wigan went up that season in a surprise promotion, to say the very least. A top strike partnership, and nothing compares for me.
I love that strike partnership. It's one that always sticks in my mind as well. But the one who really stood out for me, the first one that came to my head, was Troy Deeney and OG Nagalo in that Watford season when they finished second and got promoted. Because it was the classic partnership, wasn't it? Both strikers complemented each other perfectly. Deeney was the big bully up front, while Nagalo was the pace master. And both scored goals for fun. I think they both got 20 goals or more in that season, which is not bad going at all. How many did Ellington and Roberts get?
I think they both got 20 each. It earned Ellington a £3 million move to West Brom the season after, but again,
that went well.
It did go well. It sort of went downhill there for Ellington, but nonetheless, they still had that season. And Roberts himself, great striker, good leader as well. Something that Deeney is similar with. One thing about Igalo, I'm sure he was only there for half a season as well.
Yeah. Oh, now you're asking questions, Justin. We've only got a 2-minute timer. No, he was there for more than half a season because he made 22 appearances, but 13 were off the bench. So it's not bad going at all, is it? But they're my favourite strike partnerships when it's, 2 completely different strikers, both scoring goals for fun. Justin, can we have the next topic, please?
If you can choose one keeper from Championship history to face a last-minute penalty, who are you picking?
Well, for this, I had to go down the stats route, Justin, and had to have a look to see who actually has the best penalty record. It's a bit, mixed between who has actually got the best penalty record. It's a bit unclear, but it seems like the one who has had longevity and saved plenty of penalties in his time is Alex Smithies of Cardiff. I think he's got a 40% record of saving penalties, which is not bad going at all. And considering he has been in the Championship for so long, I think Smithies would be my pick if I'm going down the stats route.
I've also gone down the stats route. It's very hard to choose a goalkeeper. We don't give them enough recognition, but we're doing it now, and that's a good thing. But Paddy Kenny is my choice. And the reason why I think Paddy Kenny edges Smithies a little bit is because Paddy Kenny's done it at every single club he's been at. Promotions, last-minute penalties. He's the man that needs relying on. And again, a Warnock disciple like Michael Brown last week. He's the perfect goalkeeper you need. Cool head, big guy as well. No one likes to face a big goalkeeper. Very, very calm, very relaxed.
Am I right in saying he saved 3 penalties in one game? I think he definitely saved 2 at least. But something's in my head saying he may have saved 3. But yeah, it's hard to argue with Kenny. It's a tricky one, this one. Of course, when you've got a bigger goalkeeper, it always makes it a bit more intimidating for the striker. But I'm pretty sure he did save 2 in a game, I think.
Again, 2-minute timer. Can't dive into it too much. But then 28 penalties faced, 9 saved. It's a 32% save ratio, it's a very good one. Not quite as good as Smithies, but like I said, Kenny's done it. Got promotions. He's the man.
Well, Smithies has saved 14, which is the second most ever, only behind Lee Camp. But Lee Camp has played a hell of a lot more games. So I'll go Smithies just because he's got the best record. Justin, who do you think will go down as having the worst managerial stint the Championship has ever seen? There's a clear one for me.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm going to go a bit left field. I'm going to say
Jose Moraes for Barnsley.
He essentially took them down in the 17-18 season, playing some disastrous football. Had a fairly good squad as well. Obviously, the next season, Barnsley almost dominated the league just behind Luton, but it was a disaster for
Moraes.
and Barnsley. Bad appointment, overseas appointment. They've got him right since, but that one was not good. And as I say, the football was bad. Fans didn't like him. He went at the end of the season thinking he lasted a handful of games.
The obvious one for me is Gianfranco Zola at Birmingham. He obviously took over from Gary Rowett when he got surprisingly sacked, despite Birmingham being on the edge of the playoffs and nearly got them relegated in the time that he was. It was awful. It was absolutely atrocious, and I think that one always sticks with me. It pretty much ended Gianfranco Zola's managerial career because he had a pretty decent spell at Watford before, didn't he? He was in charge during the Deeney Hogg moment, but after that Birmingham spell, that was it for him. He could never recover from that because it was so bad. I think it's the biggest downturn in how a club was doing earlier in the season to how they did later in the season I've ever seen in the Championship.
Well, there was seventh when Zola took over, and then the final 3 games of the season, Harry Redknapp had to come in and save them. And as you say, it is one of the biggest disasters in Championship football the Championship ever seen. And it was a good squad as well. It's a squad that should have finished a lot higher than it did. That was a bad one from Zola, and as you say, it pretty much ended his managerial career.
And you could argue Birmingham have been trying to recover from that stint ever since, really. Justin, let's go on to the next topic, please.
Yeah, so let's move on to some free kicks. Who is your set piece king in the Championship?
The obvious one for me is obviously Peter Whittingham because that man could do it all, but his set pieces are probably the most remembered aspect about him. I remember watching a compilation of his best goals, and of course, plenty of them were from outside the box, but a lot of them were also free kicks. That one against Leicester in particular, I think it was in the playoffs once. It was one which really stood out because he had no right to take that on. But when Peter Whittingham is stood over the ball, goalkeepers are on notice because they know he could hit them. Justin, what do you think?
I don't disagree. Whittingham was an absolute legend, but I had the pleasure of watching the Spanish maestro Inigo Idiaquez for Derby County for 2 years. And my goodness, I've never, ever seen a penalty taker so consistent, so precise. 30 yards, 35 yards, any angle. He scored from a corner against Stoke City as well. He was just unbelievable. And it's worth checking out the montage of his free kicks because they're just so crisp and amazing and just chef's kiss. Absolutely brilliant.
I mean, he scored one from about 35 yards, didn't he? But it was so well struck that the keeper had absolutely no chance, and any keeper who was in goal that day would have had no chance. He was one I really, really liked.
He was a top player, and same with Peter Whittingham. The angles that these two scored free kicks from were just unreal, and that sort of quality in the Championship just cannot go unpraised. Really, it has to be shouted about because you don't really get that very often in the Premier League.
Idiaquez is someone who's probably forgotten about by quite a few Championship purists, but he's someone who will live fondly in my memory, mainly because he has got very bouncy hair as well. So that's always a positive in my book. Finally, Justin, it's a big one. We've got to finish on a big one on this retro version of the Stopwatch. Which player will go down in the ages as the epitome of the division? Who is Mr. Championship in your eyes? Who is the first person you'd have on Mount Rushmore in the Championship?
Well, the obvious one is Peter Whittingham, and it's one that you will certainly agree with me on. He is Mr. Championship, especially from a playing perspective. There's such longevity in the Championship. He should have played more games in the Premier League. The quality he had, we'll talk about free kicks, but not just free kicks, but corners, penalties. He was captain at Cardiff, scored 20 goals in one season from midfield, which is almost unheard of, especially at Championship level. Just an unreal player, really, and he is Mr. Championship.
Yeah, some people may say Tarabs, but because Whittingham was around for so long in the Championship, I don't think you can look any further than him. Some will argue the best player the Championship has ever seen. I won't disagree with them there. He could do it all, couldn't he? As an attacking midfielder, scoring goals, setting up goals, set pieces, crosses. The man was perfect for the Championship. And it is pretty ridiculous, really, that he is just known as Mr. Championship, because he should have played in the Premier League more often, shouldn't he?
He should have. I mean, he had a chance at Villa, didn't quite work out, but that worked in Cardiff's favour because, as we mentioned, the longevity he had at Cardiff was just unreal. Legend at Cardiff City, a legend in the Championship. It staggers me to realise that he started his career at left back and then he moved forwards and just got better and better and better. An unreal player, and as you say, should have played more in the Premier League. Maybe if he got that chance in the Premier League, could have been an England international, because that left foot deserved some recognition.
You've got to be some player when the club you were at are still singing about you to this day, and Whittingham fully deserves it because he's a Cardiff City legend and a Championship legend, without a doubt. And that wraps it up for another special episode of the Stopwatch. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Drop us a like if you've enjoyed, and please subscribe for more content like this. We've been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pods. Make sure you listen to our podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I've been Ryan Dilks. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanDilks1. That's Justin Peach. You can follow him at JustinPeach27 on Twitter. And thank you for watching.